Hey guys, are you enjoying Persona 5 so far? You know, if you even have the game, that is. In case you don't follow me on Twitter, by the way, you totally should follow me at ZaffreRevolution. One of the many things I can't shut up about is Persona 5. Needless to say, this was my most hyped game of the year. If I couldn't keep up with the new releases like the past few years, this would be the one I would want above the rest. I'm happy to say, however, that I've been keeping up with the consistent new games coming out this year. Seriously, there have been a ton of new releases and a lot of them are absolutely fantastic. That being said, I was able to not only get all the games I've wanted so far, but I've also gotten my hands on the recently released Persona 5. This game took top priority instantly, and after playing it for a few hours, I want to talk about it. Give my early impressions, if you will. Maybe even compare it to Persona 3 Fez and Persona 4 Golden. I'll give you the things that I like and the things that I don't. So with all that out of the way, let's cut to the chase and talk about Persona 5. Damn, where do I even start? I guess I'll bring up the story firstly. This is one of the strongest plots in the entire series, if not the strongest. The theming and narrative is incredibly mature and somewhat taboo in certain areas, giving the story some of the darkest moments this series already full of dark moments has ever seen. And I love it for that. You see just how effed up everything is or can be, making the stakes that much higher because you as the player know the awful crap going on. This leads to the story's main theme, justice. As someone who thinks of that as his favorite theme, it definitely does this theme justice. I love it so much because there's such a big gray area in what's just and unjust, leading to the answer becoming completely subjective. Every player can come to their own conclusion on what they think is right, and with the protagonist being a self-insert, this is heightened to another level entirely, being that you can choose your own responses in each situation. Even though I'm nowhere near finishing this game, I can see this becoming the best story out of all the Persona games. Yeah, I'm serious, it's that well done. Well, besides some hiccups, but we'll get to that when we get to that. The cast is also a humongous help as well. Yet again, Atlus writes a colorful and relatable group of characters that make playing through the narrative an absolute joy. The story does a fantastic job building these characters up, piquing the player's interest in wanting to learn more about every single one of them. It feels like you're getting closer to real people rather than leveling up social links, and that's a sign that the personalities were all extremely well written, and I love that. I'm still not done with the game, clearly, but I can already say that it's gonna give the previous two a run for their money. Except for my bae, Rise. Nobody can top her. Even the villains are very entertaining this time around. Usually they don't reveal these until near the end, which makes it tough to develop them. To Persona 4's credit, because of how well written and built up the murderer was, they were made to be very entertaining and intriguing. However, there weren't many villains with a good personality rather than just being plain old evil. This game seeks to change that, and if the first villain has anything to say about it, then I'm in for something special in terms of the antagonists. I don't want to say much because, well, spoilers, but damn. The fact that I personally made negative reactions to nearly every single action he made tells me that he's a good villain. I know I've got a lot to look forward to as the cast just continues to grow over time. Now, the graphics are absolutely jaw-dropping. This game looks fan-freaking-tastic, having a ton of colors and personality, and not only its characters, but the environment as well. Everyone's unique and gives me an idea of what their character might be based on their design, which is what I classify as, well, good. Speaking of character designs, I absolutely love the getup of the party members' Phantom Thieves outfits. They're so stylish and classy, while also being diverse. They each look different but look like they belong to the same group. And the new personas are so badass. I mean, look at these. They're so cool, they're so creative, they're so colorful. I love them. I love the designs. They're my favorite Persona designs ever. Just mwah, marvelous. But the best part of the presentation is that soundtrack. Just holy crap. This game goes for a jazz theme regarding its sound, and it's so sexy, guys. It's so different than anything I've ever heard in my gaming career, and every song fits its moment. You know what a pet peeve of mine is? When you hear a song in a game that fits the moment so well, only for it to be used in another section later. It's lame, and never has that same impact that it does in the moment. This game knows this, and gives us an enormous soundtrack to help further immerse the player in the game. Certain parts have their own themes, helping them form their own identity and stand out even more. That doesn't mean that the songs are half-assed though, no. They're catchy, memorable, and so Persona-esque. Like, they have that style and flair along with being legitimately good songs. It makes for a very refreshing and phenomenal OST. Need an example? Look no further than this game's intro, which has been stuck in my head ever since I first turned the game on, and ever since the game first turned me on. I know it's gonna give me hell deciding a favorite out of the series, not like these two don't give me enough trouble in regards to that. finally we get to the gameplay. Being that this is split on being a life simulator and a dungeon crawler, I'll start with the life half. There's still a lot to do and ways to manage your time, each being entertaining in their own ways and enjoyable. The environments are also a lot bigger this time around thanks to the next gen technology, making the hub world a lot more, let's say, explorable. Nothing wrong with a small hub world, but being a JRPG, I like my locations to have a bit more substance to them, and this iteration of Shibuya definitely delivers. Oh yeah, this game takes place in Shibuya. If you couldn't tell, I happen to like games that take place in Shibuya. What do you know? Anyways, yeah, the city is brimming with life and charm. I love that you can hear bits of conversation as you pass by, a la hearing people's thoughts in The World Ends With You. Just that little bit of care is what makes me love these types of games. I enjoyed being a part of the world around me, and even though everyone hated my character at the beginning, growing to gain a better reputation is oh so satisfying. The dungeon crawling aspect, however, has gotten a lot more attention this time around. I'll try not to gush too long because honestly, this is my favorite half of the game this time around. And that's crazy to me because I always preferred the life simulation over fighting enemies in the Persona games, but this game improved and added so much to make it such a great battle system and part of the overall experience. For one, dungeons aren't randomized anymore, so they can now have set pieces and puzzles to make them unique from each other rather than being remembered only for their aesthetics. Yes, this is a strip club dungeon, but is it any different from the sauna dungeon besides the looks? Not really. Thankfully this time around that changes, and I appreciate that so very much. The stealth elements are pretty dope as well, making it so that you can avoid enemies easier or sneak up on them easier as well. It leans more towards the player requiring more skill to gain the upper hand in battle rather than if the enemy just happens to notice you coming from behind in previous games. In terms of actual battles, they're faster, still have that same strategy required to win, but aren't too cheesy this time around. By cheesy, I mean that the enemies aren't either way too easy or way too hard, but just right this time around. Even the enemies that are labeled to be tougher ones aren't too much of a hassle if you just take your time to think about the situation. I love how every action is mapped to a button this time around to really up the speed of everything and streamline it as well. All out attacks look even more glorious this time around, and to my surprise, they brought back talking to shadows, which we haven't seen since, what, Persona 2 if I recall correctly? When you've cornered the enemy, you can choose to finish it off with an all-out attack, continue to battle regularly, or choose to talk to it to gain an item, money, or make it join your team as a persona. This is miles better than getting a random one from cards at the end of battle, which is random whether or not you even get to pick from the cards in the first place. Not only that, but you have to give the right dialogue options to determine whether the shadow will give you what you want or get back up to attack you again. Not only that, but similar shadows can have different personalities, making some easier to negotiate with and others a bit trickier. Not only that, but the same shadows can have different sets of dialogue, meaning you can't memorize what you said earlier, you have to adapt to changing situations in order to get what you want. It gives the game even more depth in terms of building your team of personas, adds somehow even more personality to the game, and it's just entertaining in of itself. There's so much to do and so many layers added to the dungeon crawling half of Persona 5 that I haven't covered or straight up haven't seen yet. I barely scratched the surface with this game and I'm already drowned in the depth of this journey and sheer amounts of stuff I love about this game. It's fantastic and I'm still in shock by how big of an improvement this is to previous games' dungeons. But alright, that's a lot of good. Do I have anything bad to say about this game? Well, I do have a few things I'd like to point out that I noticed in my experience so far. While yes, I have been enjoying the crap out of the story, even I couldn't help but get annoyed by just how slow it starts off. Let's compare this to Persona 3 FES and Persona 4 Golden. They all start off with the exposition and cutscenes before the real adventure begins, just like JRPGs usually do. In Persona 3 FES, it takes about a little over 1.5 hours to get to the point where the game's freedom opens up. That's really good for a JRPG. In Persona 4 Golden, it takes about 3.5 hours. A bit more, definitely, but it's even worse in Persona 5, taking around 5 hours. Ironic, I know. That's absolutely ridiculous and definitely could have been better for pacing. Sure, this may have been due to me taking longer to fight the enemies in tutorial segments and early dungeon exploration, but come on, if I get to the freaking dungeon around the 4-hour mark, that's already pushing it. This didn't bother me too much though, it was more of an annoyance and me saying, alright, we get it, let's get this thing moving. But you know, it's something to point out. Another thing with the story that bothers me a lot is the whole time skipping thing it does. I don't know what to call it, but the story starts off ahead and goes back to where it all began, so you know how you, the protagonist, got in that situation. You're getting interrogated and are basically relaying this story to an agent. However, there are points in the story where it jumps back to the interrogation room just for the agent to pester you to tell her more about the story, then it jumps back to the normal storytelling. It's a pace breaker more than anything and distracting. What's even worse is that it does this every single time you start a new social link, and it's super annoying. I get what they were trying to do here, but the execution is downright sloppy. With gameplay, there are a few issues here. When sneaking, there are times when the camera acts a bit wonky. You're supposed to move the camera in order to aim where you want to sneak to next, but the environment can hinder that, making it a bit of a hassle. This adds a lot more stress to situations where you have to sneak past enemies that are many levels higher than you, because if the camera screws you over, well. Then in battles, they still have that dumbass move where if the protagonist dies, then game over, man. Why? It's so annoying that teamwork is key to winning these battles, yet if the important one dies, then it's all over. We have life recovery items. What, are they too stupid to use one on your character? It's so stressful knowing that no matter what battle you're in, if one specific character dies, you're screwed. This leads to frequent difficulty spikes, specifically the bosses in this game. Again, with a higher damage output, you can't take any chances with leaving your character open, because if he dies, you lose. It really sucks because that drags down what could have been a perfect turn-based battle system. Also, I'm a little salty that Persona 3 Portable is the only game where you can choose to be a boy or a girl. I mean, come on, who didn't like that addition? Atlas, what you doing? DLC? Actually, we are getting DLC, so that's kind of a possibility. Wink, wink. Alright, it's clear to see I had way more good to say than bad in this early impressions video. Atlus really did pour all their love and effort to make this the best Persona game to date, and I can already tell that it'll give my third favorite game as of right now some tough competition. There's just so much to do, so much polish, fan service, secrets, and care put into one game that I can't get enough of. This game was my most hyped release of 2017, and I think that maybe, just maybe, it'll be my favorite release this year, along with my favorite game I played this year. It's been hitting almost all the right notes for me, and with DLC coming soon, it'll just get better. This series constantly surpasses my expectations, and I can't wait to finish this and give you my complete thoughts on the game. But until then, I can safely say that this game is absolutely outstanding. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got some more hearts to steal. Also, as of right now, I'm romancing Anna, but this one's a toughie to call, but she's definitely the one for right now. Reese's still best girl, though. Okay, bye.